You are now listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Hey listeners, welcome to the Roosters preview today. We've got me, Supercoach Matrix, and we have Braino. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm excited to talk about the Roosters. They're a team I see going far into the postseason this year.
Mate, funny you say that, because I might throw a little bit of a plug to our friends at Better, because they've given us $101 odds for the Roosters to take out the chip. And I put 10 on it, like they let me do. So I'm riding the Roosters train all year.
Me too. I've never been happy to see the Roosters do well, but yeah, let's see what they can fit under their sombrero.
Mate, if they can find me $1,000, I'm more than happy to cheer them on for the year.
Me too. I'm happy with the gains that they've got this year. Yeah, they've popped in with Brandon Smith, Jackson Paolo, Jake Turpin, and Corey Allen. They have lost a few, though. They've lost Freddie Lussick and Ronald Volkman to the Warriors, Fafita to South Sydney, Daniel Saluka, not any of the other ones that you've heard of, Lachlan Lamb, Talkiaho, Adam Kieran, Kevin Nguama, and Sam Verrills to Gold Coast. What do you make of the ins and outs?
Yeah, look, I mean, the obvious one there is Brandon Smith. We'll talk about him today, but mate, he's straight in my side. He should be 100% owned. Anybody who knows anything about Supercoach, and hopefully you're listening to this because you want to get clued up on getting your team right, add Brandon Smith right now. Because if you don't have him, you're probably missing a trick. There's so much cash to be made with Brandon Smith. The guy's at, what's his price? $478,000, which honestly, last year is probably worth a sub $400,000 with the increase in the salary cap. So you got to add him. Brandon Smith's a big one there. I mean, Jackson Polo, I can see him slotting onto a wing. I can see him slotting onto the right wing, considering that they've moved Joseph Suwali over to the left, which we'll talk about soon. Jake Turpin, your mate from Brisbane, I don't really see him playing too much of a part in the squad, and neither does Corey Allen. So, mate, the other gains, not so much. But and losses, mate, look, apart from Siwa Takiaho, nobody else really played big minutes last year, so we can probably disregard them.
I think it's one of those teams where the additions have actually added to their depth. A lot of these guys that they've lost aren't guys that they were looking to play. Look, Sam Verrills, wasn't a massive loss, only if there's an injury, and Brandon Smith's a big upgrade there. Brandon Smith's 53% owned. I expect that to skyrocket.
It has to. I mean, there's 47% of people saying that he is not worth owning in their team. And look, to be honest, I can probably guess that those people have gone with Smith and Tanner Boyd. Potentially they've tried to go with a pod like a Jacob Little maybe from St. George Illawarra Dragons. Look, you can't dodge Brandon Smith. It's one of the silliest things you'll do. I think you'll regret it. I think you'll be $700K. I think you'll make $200,000 from him, and you can upgrade into a guy like a fallen gun, like I'm planning Harry Grant to drop down to $700K, and you can just do a straight swap.
Yeah, let's not get too cute with it. Get Brandon Smith in your lineup, and
have to.
I'm probably maybe looking to set and forget him. I think he's enough for my second hooker for the whole year.
You wouldn't be upset if you held him all year. Use the reserve on him when you needed him, and he sits at $700,000 at the end of the year.
Yeah, our new setup as we go through the team lists isn't necessarily going to be to go through the team and go through. We're going to step in our booms and busts as we go along. But yeah, I'm going to run through the team quickly, and then we'll come back and do some notes. At number 1, we've got James Tedesco. In the centre wing, we've got Tupou, Suwali, Joey Manu, and Jackson Paolo. In the halves, we've got Kieran Walker. In front row, we've got Lodge, and we've got Lindsay Collins. We've got Brandon Smith that we spoke about at number 9. We've got Crichton and Nat Butcher. We've got Victor Radley at lock. And then, on the way that I see the bench is Drew Hutchinson, Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Egan Butcher, and I don't know, maybe a Jake Turpin, a Connor Watson once he comes back. But yeah, nothing there that's too out of the ordinary.
Does Connor Watson coming back onto the bench worry you with Brandon Smith potentially mid-year?
Brandon Smith is always Brandon Smith has never been an 80-minute guy. I think that he might play 55, 60 minutes and Connor Watson might take a few from him. But we also saw Brandon Smith step into that lock role. Look, the Roosters have been pretty banged up over the years, but they do have quality players. Maybe Brandon Smith just, drops into a lock if he's fit enough. And you see Connor Watson play there for 20, 25 minutes.
I think also you got Drew Hutchison that can easily slot in there. I don't think the expectation is for Brandon Smith to play 80. I don't think that's realistic. In saying that, they've been looking at him in preseason and he's dropped a bit of weight and he's looking really fit. So
he wants to
are they planning on him to play 80?
Wants to look really good on those Bondi beaches. So,
mate, there's plenty to look at on Bondi Beach as well. So
yeah, it's a bit cold in Melbourne.
Yeah, he's the obvious one to talk about, so we can probably move past him considering more than half of Supercoaches are on top of him already. Yeah. The guy I want to talk about, mate, is Joey Manu at 801,000. Now, I got him very early last year. That was a bit of a masterstroke from me last year. It kind of probably helped me end in the top 500. The guy was just a beast, wasn't he? And he's not a traditional centre. We need to remember that he's a roving centre. They've given him a licence at the Roosters to rove either side of the field, to play as a little bit of a second fullback. So, obviously that might have hindered Teddy a little bit last season early on. But Joey Manu, if the hooker isn't there in time, he's taken that ball out of dummy half and he's running that ball. He's a little bit of a glue hands, but that's the kind of guy you want. Mate, if he thinks he's on, he's not passing the ball. Obviously, with the price, it's a little bit tricky. But have you actually considered or looked at him yet?
No, he's a guy I regretted not owning last year. I got to the same point, and I think you were there last year, where I had to decide between a Ruben Garrick and a Joey Manu. I went Ruben Garrick, just stepping in with logic, him being a goal kicker, and I wasn't disappointed with Ruben Garrick, but I won't be looking at Joey Manu this year.
Mate, you didn't go wrong with Ruben Garrick either, to be fair. That was a really good option. So, pretty hard to lose there.
I'm just going to talk about James Tedesco. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. 830K, 43% owned. Is he in your team?
He is, and he's not leaving. I'll tell you that much. He's. I've said it when we talk in our team picker in the first episode, where that Matt Burton was not leaving my team. Another guy that's not leaving my team is Tedesco. I'm not doing it to myself again. I started with Tedesco last year, and he started slowly. He started, I think it was a 74 average, and everybody's expecting these big 100 average kind of Tedesco, but last year it didn't happen. I want to remind everybody and bring everybody back to 2021 and 2020. So 2021, James Tedesco averaged 106. And in the first 6 rounds. And in 2020, he averaged 105. So he starts the season really well. There's a rumour that he starts poorly, but I think that's bullshit, to be honest. He always starts the season incredibly well. I feel like this year he's going to do exactly the same thing. If you're not going with Tedesco, who are you picking? Are you picking Latrell and Turbo as a point of difference? What if Tedesco goes double ton, in the first 2 weeks? You're way behind the 8 ball. I think it's way too much of a risk to fade a guy like Tedesco.
He's my favourite guy to put the vice captain on if he's playing Friday night, put the captain on and just be sure that he's going to pump out, 70 plus. He's got 120 in him. Look, I want him in my team. I have him currently sitting there. I've had to forego Nico for it. But I like that vice captain. If Nico was still a fullback, maybe I'd be looking at it differently. But I like to be able to vice captain Cleary, then pop the C on Teddy if I can. So
Teddy is my captain in round 1 against the Dolphins. I can tell you that now. About 30 days out from the season, it's already locked in.
Straight C.
Done. Sorted. There's times where you've got to take the straight C. When you're looking at an advantageous matchup with a guy that could be the best player in Supercoach versus a team that has just come into the competition that is looking very shaky, you've got to do it. So I'm more than happy to chuck the armband on him.
Sounds good. Hey, as we look at guys that have come back from injuries, Luke Keary came back from an injury last year, started really slow and really poorly, but finished the season quite well. He's 541K at a 51 average. Is he a guy you're looking at?
He's not, but I can see the merit in doing it because when we see a guy come back from an ACL injury, they always have a worse year. And we said it again. I've said it. The only guy that's come back from a good year is Tedesco. He's come back to a better year in Supercoach. NRL Physio has very obviously publicised this. So Kiri was a fade for me last year, and I'm glad I did. But this year, there is definitely a second year progression when it comes back from ACL. So I can't argue with Kiri or Sam Walker, who I'm sure we're going to talk about very soon as well, because both of these guys are going to take a step up this year.
Yeah, I hope to see it. Sam Walker excites me because I think the Roosters could be the best team in the comp next year. And they're going to score a lot of tries. And Sam Walker's the goal kicker. I'm just looking to see Luke Keary ticked over 30, whether they're ready to, give the keys to the city to Sam Walker and just let him go. I'm looking to see who's that playmaker. Is it going to be, Brandon Smith and Tedesco and it's going to come out of position? Is it going to be Joey Mono stepping in? Or are they just going to score a lot of tries? And Sam Walker gets 30 points just from goal kicking.
Mate, it's funny you mentioned Sam Walker. I probably did. I led you into it. But he's my smoky for this year. I think it's a breakout year for him. I genuinely think that Sam Walker is going to take the Roosters to a premiership this year. We've seen that he's been building up over the last 2-3 years as to that guy. They want him to be that guy. They want him to lead this team. And I feel like this year it's kind of like a boom or bust for Sam Walker. I feel like everyone's talked him up. Everyone's been on his back. Everyone's saying that this guy's going to be the next guy. So and he's had 3 years in this squad. He understands the squad. He understands the system. It's now or never for him. So I feel like he's kind of at that Cooper Cronk standard now. His running game went to a new level last year. He's priced at a 59. Mate, he could go 70 plus comfortably this year. So you've got an 11-point uptick. Mate, he's a big play for me.
He'd look good in the Broncos jersey. I don't know if he's ever tried one on.
Mate, he probably never will, to be fair. I reckon if the Roosters are smart, he's going to be locked up for a 10-year contract like old mate Tom Malolo.
Yeah. He's young. He's fantastic. He's dynamic. He's in a great team. He's got plenty of options to pass it to. They're going to score a lot of tries. Look, if you're not looking at Nico and Cleary and you just want to save yourself $300K, hey, there's merit to it.
There is. It's a risky play. Mate, my other smoky I want to mention very quickly before we move on is Nat Butcher. Now, I want to just keep in mind, I'm going to throw a stat at you. You take it or leave it. Now, when Nat Butcher played more than 70 minutes last year, he averaged 66.5.
Yep.
So I see Nat Butcher playing an 80-minute role this year. He's shown last year he can do it. I feel like he's taken the next step in his development as a player at the Roosters. He showed last year that he can run a good line. He can work well with Keary and with Walker. Mate, there's worse options in Nat Butcher. If he gets 80 minutes and he lines up at 80 minutes in this squad, mate, I'd probably look at him over other 80-minute second rowers.
So I started last year with Nat Butcher, and I love Nat Butcher, and I see him making a step up. But if I'm spending $600K or $580K for a second row forward from the Roosters, I'm taking Angus Crichton. He's at discount this year. He started very poorly last year. We saw him actually coming off the bench for a little bit last year. He's priced to the 66 average, and I see him getting a 75 average. I'm really high on Angus Crichton this year. We said in the team picker, I would pick him and take the discount over Cameron Murray. Get Angus Crichton in your team if you're looking for a premium second row forward. Yeah,
I do want him. I feel like, and I'm going to shout out Supercoach Spy here because he's thrown some incredible stats at us. He talks about Crichton not scoring a try for the first 17 rounds, and then he scored 5 in the last 7. The guy's a try-scoring machine, and he went without scoring a try and still averaging 66. Like, he obviously finished with a wet sail. But let's look at the first half of the season. If he can jag 5 or 6 tries, which is pretty much his average, really, we're looking at a guy that could be relatively 800K pretty comfortably. So I have no argument against Angus Crichton. He's a guy I want in my team. I'm just trying to find a way to structure it.
If we're talking about Keary getting better, Angus Crichton's going to get better. They have such an amazing connection together. Yeah, it's going to be such a good Roosters team. They're actually my pick to win the comp.
Me too. I'm with you. I'm with you, mate. We're going to be cheering them on. We're going to have to buy some Roosters jerseys, I think. Mate, it's going to kill me to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Grand final, but I'm not wearing a Roosters jersey.
Mate, there's one guy I want to talk about before we wrap up the Roosters, because, you know, these guys, they've got value all over the park at the moment, is Lindsay Collins. Because I know that you're pretty big on Lindsay Collins, and to be honest, I'm being talked around on him, because there was I think it was the 2020 or 2021, sorry, he had that ACL injury, missed the season. 2022 was his comeback year, and we know that a player coming back from a full year of an ACL injury is always going to be better in year two. So, mate, Lindsay Collins, there could be worse options at 455,000 in that mid-range.
Yeah, look, I hate front row forwards this year. I've said it 100 times. Yeah, I could get Lindsay Collins. I could get around Lindsay Collins. I could get him in my team. Look, he needs to tackle without with his head out of the way. He's had way too many HIAs, and I'm super worried that his career is going to be short because of that. But he's a tremendous football player, and the forwards are going to have to take him forward if they're going to win a premiership that we both think they're going to do this year. It's going to be a big workload from Matty Lodge, Lindsay Collins, Victor Radley. All those tremendous second row forwards we've covered. Yeah.
They're going to be relying on guys like Lindsay Collins to have a big year. Absolutely, They have to. I've heard that Lindsay Collins has actually contacted Joe Rogan and wanted to know whether he can get into the MMA with all the knees that he's taken to the head. Let's hope that doesn't happen, mate, and he gets through a full season. Because if he does get through a full season, he's a fantastic option at mid-range price. But look, there's too much risk there for me to go there initially. And also, you've got guys like Daniel Saifidi, and we've got primo options like Ruben Cotter in the front row. So he probably falls out of the must-have option for me.
Yeah.
But in saying that, you could go worse. So, this Roosters lineup, when you look at it, they've got options all over the park, and it probably reflects in the fact that we think that they're going to win the comp. So there's a lot of, great options here.
There's going to be a lot of points that we're going to hand around. But they've got to buy round 4. You don't want 4 Roosters in your team if they've got to buy round 4. You're just going to have a stinker. If you're looking for that overall position, you've got Tedesco. Look, if you're listening to the podcast, you've got Tedesco, you've got Brandon Smith. You could be talked into a Sam Walker. You don't want a 4th.
Yeah, not with the early buy, which is the one thing we haven't mentioned here. So the Roosters have a buy in... I'm going to tell you right now, round 4. But we need to take into consideration they've got the Dolphins and they've got the Warriors in rounds 1 and 2. They're probably the best 2 matchups in the competition. So can these guys get off to a red-hot start? I'm going to say yes, they do. They're going to go 2 from 2. It's very hard to see either of the 2 probably worst teams in the comp knock off one of the best teams in the comp. They've got the Souths in round 3, and then they've got the bye. So you can get your price rise out of these guys, and as long as you don't go with probably more than 3, I think you can probably cover it in those positions with the guys on your bench.
Okay, man. Pick 3 guys from the Roosters. Who do you have in your team?
Tedesco, Brandon Smith, and Angus Crichton.
Oh, sorry, you took the words out of my mouth. No Sam Walker.
Can't be. Not with those 3. You've got too many good options there. Angus Crichton's premium. Brandon Smith, too cheap, too good. And James Tedesco, probably the best player in the game. It's, mate, Sam Walker's 4th, but he doesn't make... You asked me for 3, mate. I'm sorry, I can only work with 3.
I'm on board. I just thought you were going to say Sam Walker, and I was going to go on a Crichton rant again. It's okay.
Mate, I was worried if I asked you, you were going to say Jack Turpin, so I didn't want to open that can of worms.
They have hairdressers in Sydney. Can you?
Yeah, we've mentioned that. We'll move on from Turpin's haircut. But I think that wraps us up for the Roosters, mate. As always, thanks for hopping on, man. We're moving through these teams pretty quickly, but obviously make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you follow the podcast on all the podcasting services, and we'll continue to bring you these team previews over the next week or 2, and then we'll move into our positional analysis, which is one I'm really looking forward to. So Mate, lastly, where can people reach you if they want to contact you and chat about James Turpin or Jake Turpin?
You can't even say his name right. That's how good he is.
No, that's how relevant he is.
Ex-Broncos captain Jake Turpin. You can talk to me about Jake Turpin at SC_Matrix on Twitter. And where can we find you to talk about all the ex-Broncos captains?
Just Braino_FS on Twitter, mate. So I won't be talking about ex-Broncos captains, though. I'll be talking about players that have left the Tigers that we could make a State of Origin side out of. So
Darius Boyd's a smoky this year, so is Mitchell Moses. Let's do it.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for hopping on. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, mate.